Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win. We're back for another edition of Diablo 3. Today on the channel, we are taking a look at the Natalya's Vengeance armor set for the Demon Hunter. Now, before I get into this video, I'm going to let you guys know that this is by far the worst armor set to use for the Demon Hunter. It is a Reign of Vengeance set, and Reign of Vengeance is not a good ability to begin with. So, the 2-piece set bonus says, reduce the cooldown of Reign of Vengeance by 3 seconds when you hit with a hatred-generating attack. 4-piece set bonus says Reign of Vengeance deals 100% increased damage. 6-piece bonus after casting a Reign of Vengeance deal 14,000% increased damage and take 80% reduced damage for 10 seconds, which sounds like a lot, but it doesn't really help too much. Now, to help with this armor set, we are going to be using a gold set. So 2-piece bonus will give us reduced damage taken by 15% and increased damage dealt by 30%, which is all we're trying to do is get more attack out of this particular armor set. So we're going to be using the shoulders and as well as the bracers for that. We're also going to be using the Hellcat waist guards. Grenades have a chance to bounce 5 times, dealing an additional 60% damage. So that's going to be used with the Reign of Vengeance. We're also going to be using Restraint and Focused as our rings. We're going to be using Dawn and Offhand so that we can get a buff to Vengeance, which we need to use. We're also going to be using Squirt's Necklace to get a little bit more damage for whenever we're standing still. Here's what we're going to be using. Primary, Entangling Shot, Reign of Vengeance, Anathema, which is pretty much the only one really we can use to use grenades. Smoke Screen, which is Special Recipe. Fan of Knives, Pinpoint Accuracy. This is actually going to help us a little bit because we'll be able to do a little bit more damage. We're going to be using Vengeance, Dark Heart, so that way we can reduce the damage that we're dealt with. We're going to be using Strafe to basically get mobility out of here because we're going to be needing this. This is the passives. We're going to be using Single Out, Call of the Week. We're also going to be using Awareness and Ambush. In our Knights Cube, we are using Lord Greenstone's Fan, Aquila Cuirass, and Convention of Element. You can switch out the Lord Greenstone's Fan for a weapon that enhances the amount of damage that you do to Entangling Shot. That's Odyssey's End, if I remember correctly. It's a matter of what you have available. Unfortunately, by the time we did this video, we did not have a Odyssey End on hand to put in the Knights Cube. So again, this is a Reign of Vengeance set. Reign of Vengeance is not a very good armor or skill to use. There's really not anything you can use for it outside of Anathema. And it's one of these things where it stays stationary, so we're going to have to try to rely on manipulating the mobs to Walking Dead into it based on the way they're programmed. Keep in mind, I've always said, when it comes to mobs in Diablo 3, they are programmed that when they see you, they will walk towards you and they will follow you. So we're going to try to do that. For the purpose of this demonstration, we are going to play a greater of 60, 65, and a 70. Again, this is a very bad armor. I'm just going to show you guys what it's capable of doing. This is kind of cautionary. There are much better armors to use for the Demon Hunter. I would recommend Gears of Dreadland, Shadow Impale Hunter, and even the Marauder set. All those particular armors are better, but for the purpose of demonstration, we're going to show you what this can do. So, in theory, what you're going to want to do is cast a Reign of Vengeance, where I'm hopefully going to get an area where I could drop. There's the Reign of Vengeance. You see, it drops a whole bunch of grenades that just keep dropping down. What you want to do with this armor primarily is be able to get them to walk into it. However, after you cast the Reign of Vengeance, keep in mind for 10 seconds you deal an increased amount of damage. 10 seconds, however, in Diablo 3 is not a whole bunch of time to deal a lot of damage, which is you have to rely on then either strafing around to do your damage or the Fan of Knives. Entangling Shot's really not going to kill many mobs for us, so that's where this armor already starts to have its problems. You could use a different ability for the Reign of Vengeance. Unfortunately, those don't do a whole bunch of damage. This is the one that can deal the most amount of damage. We're just relying on the grenades to do things, so keep that in mind. You could also use the Crashing Rain Belt to be able to spawn a creature that will follow you around after you cast a Reign of Vengeance. That is not necessarily ideal. So what we're going to have to rely on is after we do a grenade, just cast Vengeance and then strafe around and use Entangling Shot powered up with Vengeance to be able to do damage. Those are really our only outs when it comes to taking out mobs. This is very slow armor. Case in point, look, I cast the Reign of Vengeance and stay stationary, but there's no mobs really around. And the problem really with the set on top of that is that the mobs can walk away from the Reign of Vengeance. So if I drop those grenades and they walk towards me, if they are not killed by those grenades as they're walking towards me and they walk out of it, they will not deal damage. They can dodge out of it. Case in point there. There's just a lot of things that happen that don't work in your favor when it comes to using Rain of Vengeance. Unfortunately, that particular ruin for Rain of Vengeance is the one that deals the optimal amount of damage, which is quite unfortunate for us. So pretty much what we're going to have to do is then strafe around using Vengeance. Now, if we're going to spend all our time strafing around, it would be much better use of our time to use the Gears of Dreadland set, which is focused on strafing around the screen to be able to do a lot of damage. Now, since we are talking about the Demon Hunter, and Season 23 of Diablo's PTB is now officially live and been alive for quite a while already, the Demon Hunter set, particularly that I was just talking about, Gears of Dreadland, is going to be seeing some nerfs to it. In particular, Hungering Arrow will no longer cast 4 Hungering Arrows when you're strafing around. Instead, it's going to cast 2, meaning that you do not deal as much damage potentially with your Hungering Arrows while strafing around. So basically, they felt that the armor was overperforming and doing way too well. Case in point, if you look at the leaderboards for Season 22 of Diablo, you will notice that the Demon Hunters have been on a huge rise in terms of their usage, thanks to Gears of Dreadland. God Hungering Arrow is like the go-to armor set that was dominating the leaderboards. Obviously, there was also Whirlwind Barbarian, and now Bone Spear Necromancer starting to see some serious play in High Greater Rifts, although it's not as fast as particularly Gears of Dreadland or Whirlwind, which are spin-to-win sets. So, yeah, they were nerfed. So, Gears of Dreadland had to be nerfed. I had mentioned this, actually, at the beginning of Season 22, and even at the end of Season 21, when the Gears of Dreadland set first made its appearance, that Gears of Dreadland was a very strong armor, too strong for its own good, and it was going to be one of those things that was the over-centralized meta, where we were going to be seeing a lot of Gears of Dreadland play and not enough of anything else. So, case in point, my prediction came true in regards to that. Other things that we can talk about in regards to Season 23 of Diablo, something I haven't actually mentioned on the channel, is that they are reworking the follower system. The follower system, for those of you who are not familiar, is a person that you get in the solo campaign and the story mode, which is a follower that follows you around and helps you on your quest. Case in point, my follower is the Templar. Now, for Season 23 of Diablo, Blizzard devs decided that they wanted to do something different with the followers. So now, the follower is going to have its own set of gears, its own set armors, it's giving them new abilities, reworking some abilities. They basically want the follower to actually contribute to your hunts and be able to do things and to help you out and be able to actually customize your followers, something that really you weren't able to do before. Yeah, and currently, for this particular season and all the seasons past, the follower basically was only able to be given a weapon, being able to give a unique piece of armor that would basically affect the amount of skills that it could use and whether it could die or whether it could not die, and that was about it. They basically gave you a token, and that token was considered its unique equipment. So you could give it a sword or a weapon, a shield, or an offhand thing. You could give it a necklace, you could give it 2 rings, and that was it. You couldn't give it any armor. Now they're going to give it armor, which means that, in theory, if you are grinding and fortunate enough, you probably could get Primal Ancient legendary pieces for your follower. And they've changed certain dynamics to the followers, so it's going to be interesting to see followers actually have an impact on solo play. Because remember, when you're playing solo, outside of yourself, that's really the contributing factor. The other person doing damage really usually is the follower, but even when you have a follower geared out with ancient legendary things, you can't like augment gems into any of his things or her things. So it's very, very weak. It's like having another cosmetic for all intents and purposes. Case in point, my follower here really can't kill anything on this particular Greater Rift. Okay, so for this Rift Garden, basically what we're going to do is cast a grenade, which we didn't really need to do. Unfortunately, we couldn't cast a grenade here because we had already used it, and we got still the 6-piece bonus for being able to do increased damage for 10 seconds. So that kind of helps. So usually you want the grenade to go off and then take advantage of those 10 seconds to be able to do maximum amount of damage. For the gems, we're using Bane of the Trap, Bane of the Stricken, and we are also using a Bane of the Powerful for the moment. You can use a Esteric Altercation. That's probably one of your best things. Or if you have, use a Tegook, because since you are going to be using strafing will get augmented because it's channeling skill by Tegook. So that's a recommendation I would say for Natalya. Unfortunately, I just wanted to do more damage, so I just decided to just go Vampire. As you can see, 6-minute clear time on Greater Rift 60. This is not a very good armor. This is going to be a Greater Rift 65. Same situation. Get to the beginning of the stage, or Greater Rift, we're going to cast a Rain of Vengeance, which is a grenade. Hopefully things will walk. For a limited amount of time, 10 seconds, we get an increased attack and damage reduction. So what we'll do is we'll strafe a little bit. Okay, now we got to cast the Hellfire Grenade again, basically. So we're going to drop it. Obviously, we're strafing around a bit. Wait about 10 seconds. Hopefully, if your 10 seconds are up, your cooldown on your Rain of Vengeance is back. So then you can cast a Nerve Grenade. That's pretty much the only way you can kind of operate this. Always try to keep your Vengeance up because it will decrease the amount of damage you do. And on top of that, since you're already casting a Rain of Vengeance, you will be able to do increased amount of damage on top of more increased amount of damage. And you're also getting increased damage reduction. That's kind of like the only really thing or strategies that you could kind of use with this particular set. Again, this is probably, by all intents and purposes, a F-tier armor set for the Demon Hunter. It's quite frustrating to use this set, actually. I'm going to, again, strafe around the stage a little bit. As you can see, I'm not doing as much damage. Unfortunately, I got killed by one of the killers of this thing. It's probably one of the more annoying things. Also, since we're using Fan of Knives, we can always use Fan of Knives to do a certain amount of damage as well. Keep in mind, based on what we have in the Knives Cube, the more times we do Fan of Knives, we can increase the amount of damage up to about 20 to 25 stacks, if I recall correctly. The only problem with that is Fan of Knives takes a very long time to cool down. Most of the time when it's on cooldown, you're not going to be seeing elite packs on screen, and you will not be able to really use it when you need to. Instead, you'll have to waste it on low-level mobs, which is kind of unfortunate. Again, Rain of Vengeance is one of those things where, unfortunately, because it stays stationary in its attack area and radius, you really can't do too much damage with it as well. Because, look, I drop it here, I'm going to strafe. The strafe is going to do a little bit amount of damage up until about 10 seconds. Should wear off right around here, which it does. Then I'm just entangling shot to basically resource generate. Strafe around to get a little bit of mobility. I'm waiting for my Rain of Vengeance. Rain of Vengeance again. I cast a Vengeance. Now I'm going to just kind of go ham for 10 seconds because that's the window of opportunity I have to deal the most amount of damage. And that's basically what you're going to have to do with the set to underperform for all intents and purposes. This is kind of one of those sets where I'm going to say, like I said, with Firebird, which fortunately Blizzard did actually listen and decided to rework the set and give it much-needed buffs to make it viable, at least. Natalya's set armor needs buffs. This is the only set armor for the Demon Hunter class that does not buff multiple abilities. The only thing it buffs is Rain of Vengeance. It doesn't buff anything else. Every other set that we have buffs something else besides what it already does. So maybe it should buff Entangling Shot. Maybe it should buff a skill that we don't normally see. Maybe they could rework it where when you cast the Rain of Vengeance, or maybe like the 2-piece bonus or the 4-piece bonus, Rain of Vengeance gets all its ruins. Something as simple as that would give it way more viability. And as you can already see here, I'm on Greater Rift 65, and I've taken 2 deaths here. This armor is not fully optimized, but it's just one of those things where the particular things that you have to work with don't deal out a maximum amount of damage. See, I'm in a very bad position here, and it's getting to the point where I'm going to actually have to deal some damage, get rid of these guys, and then dip out of this Greater Rift when I have an opportunity and dip back in because I have to actually heal up the armor. Now, in terms of optimization, what you could do if you have a Death Wish and still want to play this armor, in your helm, you want crit hit ratio 6%. That's the most perfect crit hit ratio that you could get. In your gloves, you need crit hit ratio 6%, crit hit damage 50%, attack speed 6.0 to 8.0%, preferably on the higher end. That way you will get a bit more damage mileage out of your particular set armor, and you could use you really need to get more damage modifiers to be able to even try to struggle to clear Greater Rifts, I should say. So that's something that you could do. to basically optimize it. Wherever you have a slot where you can boost the damage of Rain of Vengeance, or if you're using, in this case, Strafe and Entangling Shot, particularly I would say you want to more rely on boosting the amount of Strafe damage you do. Definitely focus on that. Cooldown is very important for this set because Rain of Vengeance has a very slow cooldown, even with the 2-piece bonus. So I would say definitely you want to invest in cooldown where possible. So look to see if you could get cooldown on the shoulders. Look to see if on a belt you put cooldown. Look to see anywhere possible. On the boots, you always want 12% movement speed. People always question why 12% movement speed, but being able to move a bit faster is sometimes in Diablo 3, especially when you get higher up in the Grey Rifts, a matter of life or death. It means you can dodge quicker, you can move out of the way quicker, you move through Greater Rifts quicker, which means you can shave off a significant amount of time on your clear time just being able to have that extra amount of mobility. When it comes to resource cost here, where possible, you could reduce the amount of hatred that you are spending. Because keep in mind, the only thing really we have outside of Entangling Shot to generate resources for us is our Vengeance, which we have to conserve for when we're on screen with a lot of enemies that are basically doing AoE type of effects and abilities where there's a lot of hazards on the ground. So keep that in mind. That's definitely worth looking into, but I would focus more so on putting cooldown wherever possible. Now, in theory, if you wanted to and you were going the cooldown route, like with everything, if you had the space, instead of going with a gold, which I think you really need because you really need to get the attack damage modifiers to just be able to even make this manageable to play on a low spectrum, you could go Captain Crimson and probably put it in the belt and the pants. And then you could, you know what, with the cooldown that you're already applying because of Rain of Vengeance, you could do an increased amount of damage that way. Keep in mind, though, Rain of Vengeance really doesn't do a lot of damage, so you have to rely on Strafe again. And if you're going to spend your time using Strafe on armor, why not just go Gears of Dreadland, which that armor's specifically designed to it. You're powering up Strafe when there's an armor that could do that much better and can clear things much faster with it. So it's just one of those matters of whether you really want to do that or not. So here's that to definitely keep in mind. We're getting close to the end of this particular Greater Rift. Now, if you have a Natalya's Vengeance set that you actually like to use and you found an effective build for it, definitely let me know in the comment section. I'm going to cast a Rain of Vengeance here, and as you could see, I was able to get the Rift Guardian to stay in that cone of grenades, which is where it was able to do most of the damage. I think it was fortunate for us that that was one of the slower moving Rift Guardians that does not teleport. If it was the Sorcerer one in particular or the Demon one that moves around fast, it would teleport out of the Rain of Vengeance cone, and then we'd have a problem. Now, since Rain of Vengeance is kind of AoE-ish in nature, you could, on your armor, if you wanted to try to optimize the cone of damage, actually look for adding area of effect damage and modifying that. But again, I feel like cooldown is going to be way more better for you, because if you can keep casting your Rain of Vengeance and not having long times of waiting for it, it's probably better for you, since that's kind of what the set needs to be able to power up the rest of the skills on it. So keep that in mind. I'm going to do a Greater Rift 70. This is going to be the last Greater Rift we do for the set armor. This is going to be Cautionary Tale again, because we have been doing this Greater Rift for quite a while now, and the enemies have more HP as well as they can dish a lot of damage. I have potential for getting squashed a lot. Again, Rain of Vengeance gives us only 10 seconds of increased damage. 10 seconds of increased damage is actually not a great amount of time in terms of Diablo 3, especially on a high Greater Rift where the mobs basically can tank our hits and deal a lot. So in order to kind of just be able to get through this Greater Rift, and we are going to take a lot of deaths, I'll just let you know that, we have to rely on timing our Fans of Knives perfectly, as well as conserving our Vengeance, as well as conserving our Rain of Vengeance for pretty much only when we're seeing elite packs on screen. And now our strategy has to change a little bit even with this armor, because when we cast a Rain of Vengeance, we're going to have to rely on the programming of the mobs a lot more to just follow us from far away and walk into the grenade cone so that we can just basically have them standing there still. Now, this will work good on slower mobs, and this will work great on slow-moving elite packs. However, on the faster ones that can basically run through that grenade zone, we are going to be at a significantly higher disadvantage. So we will try our best. Now, again, this is why I say this armor suffers greatly, because it relies so heavily on Rain of Vengeance, which doesn't deal a whole bunch of damage. And then on top of that, since Rain of Vengeance can only stay there in that particular spot, we have problems. Now, if we use the variations and ruins of Rain of Vengeance, we can't do a whole lot of damage. We'll be able to have it up more, but it still doesn't do a lot of damage because of the way it works. So it's kind of one of those things where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. What can you do? This is kind of the best set build we can do for a terrible armor, unfortunately. So there's that. So like I said, Season 23 Diablo is coming up soon. We are getting very close to covering all armors for Season 22 of Diablo. Within the next week, we will, I believe in the next week to a week and a half, we will officially be done with every armor for Season 22 of Diablo. There are only a small handful of armors that we haven't covered yet. We have not covered the Zumanisa armor for the Witch Doctor, which is a fetish build, which we will be covering next week on Monday. We have also not covered the Roland armor for the Crusader, which is one that relies on basically blocking with the shield and using sweep attack in conjunction with each other to do its damage. That's actually an okay B-tier armor. We will be looking at that armor set in the near future as well. The only armor that we have not covered on the channel outside of those two is the Accursed Visage for the Demon Hunter, which will be the following week. And the armor that we have not covered is for the Wizard class, which is the Talraja set. We have used Talraja in our Firebird build, but we have never used it by itself. That's an elemental build. That set armor is pretty bad. So as you can see, we've gone through all the good ones, and now we're just kind of working our way through the bottom of the barrel for all these particular armors. These are all the F-tier armors basically left to cover. So that's what is planned for the next 2 weeks of content here on the channel. So it'll be Zumanisa, and it will also be the Roland set on the channel next week. Then on the following week, we will conclude our Season 22 Diablo free coverage with the Talraja set, as well as the Accursed Visage set. And I will have officially covered all the armors and how they work and how they operate and guides for them for Season 22 of Diablo, which was a very large undertaking. I did revisit some of the armors that we covered earlier in the season as revised builds during the season, because it was a very long season. So I'm definitely looking forward in Season 23 for playing Firebird, because Firebird looks more optimized. I'm definitely looking forward to playing with the changes that have been introduced into Rothmon. I'm interested to see how much Gears of Dreadland has been nerfed, to see how significant of a change is it, if any, or if it's just something that's not going to matter. I'm also curious to see how much impactful is the nerf to Spirit Barrage Witch Doctor, aka the Mundunungu set, because now Gazing Demise has been changed and it has a limit of stacks and everything. So that's a very interesting change as well that we'll have to look into. As always, when it comes to Diablo free videos on the channel, this would not be possible without the support of the Diablo free community and the fan base that has taken a liking to my Diablo free videos. So a tremendous thank you to everybody who has been watching Diablo free content on the channel since we introduced it. You know, this was an experiment in terms of content, because there are obviously many other Diablo free content creators, very good ones, obviously, like Rykor, or not Rykor, I should say, Riker and Bloodshed and Filthy Casual, and to be welcomed into the community by Diablo 3 players and having very supportive comments and giving player feedback in regards to set armors and ways to revise them and vice versa. And having that dialogue with these guys here on the channel has been a very great, humble, uplifting experience, obviously, during the pandemic. I started this channel, ironically, at pretty much the height of the pandemic as a means to pass the time, obviously, because I'm stuck at home at the moment, and also to keep a little bit of sanity. Like I'm pretty sure a lot of you have been doing with your gaming as well. But, you know, a tremendous thank you to everybody that has liked the videos, commented on the videos, interacted in any shape or form with the Diablo 3 content, as well as the other content that we feature on the channel. People have liked, people have subscribed. Definitely keep those subscriptions coming and the likes, because with your interactions and your subscription, we can work on getting this channel partnered by YouTube when I hit a particular threshold of users. We've already hit the threshold for watch time needed to be able to be partnered. We have not hit the subscription threshold as of yet, but perhaps by the end of the year we might actually be able to hit that. And none of that would be possible without you, the viewers, who continue to watch the videos and support. So a tremendous thank you to everybody in the Diablo 3 community and everybody who subscribes and watches these videos as I put them out weekly, every 2 videos a week. Tremendous thank you. We're going to obviously introduce Diablo 2 to the channel when that's available, because Diablo 2 Resurrect is coming. I'm definitely looking forward to playing that. And I'm also going to be playing our dungeon crawlers like Minecraft Dungeons from time to time, and some other maybe hidden gems as well. So that was the Natalya's armor set. I recommend using any armor for the Demon Hunter over this, but that is it. This is the armor. I recommend something else. It's very underwhelming, folks, as you can see even in the playstyle of it. So that's going to do it for today's Diablo 3 video. As always, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already.